Hey there, welcome to this review of my menus and cues asset pack. Let's just dive right into it. So you see here we have two folders. One is called cues and one is called menus. Pretty self-explanatory. Cues just means short little musical hits that might be used for something like leveling up or anything like that. And menus, of course, are intended to be used for your main menu, credits, or anything similar like that. So I'm going to go through each track and talk about what some of these little things mean, how to read and understand the titles. This first track is called Chosen One. It's inspired by titles from Elder Scrolls games. Cool. And then you see here, there's also a version that says loop. I'm just going to demonstrate the looping capabilities real quick. To do this, I'm going to put the file in Logic Pro. This is the program I use to create music. And in putting it in Logic File, it's not going to manipulate the audio in any way. So what you hear is what you get. So here's the file. I'm just going to repeat it. Here's how it loops from the end of the track going back to the beginning. So yeah, it's pretty seamless. Great, again, for menus. If the player's just kind of looking around the settings or whatever, you could just keep the music going. Keep the loop happening. All right, this next track is called Déplace Paix. Pretty cool. And again, we have loop version of that as well. This one's called Final Stance. It takes some inspiration from Elden Ring and some from a few other games. I want to point out how there's a version called underscore and then underscore loop. What underscore means is that there's no melody. So I'm going to go ahead and play Final Stance at the section where there is a melody being played. And here's the underscore version. So you have two options there to choose from. Here's Guild of Adventurers. This one's pretty fun. Land of Heroes has quite a few versions here, so let's dive into all of this. The normal version is divided up into 3 or 4 sections, and I'm giving you different versions here so that you can kind of play with and have each section. So here's just the normal version, Land of Heroes, and I'm going to break it down by section. So this is the intro. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit so it stays there for a little longer, and then it transitions into a new section. So it continues there, and there's that same melody, and then eventually leads us to another section. And then that goes into the end and so on. It kind of swells into that theme one final time. So here's just the intro. That's one of the versions, Land of Heroes intro. This is Land of Heroes alt. That means alternate version. So this is the section after the intro, and it takes us all the way to the end of the song. And so on. So you can basically, you're just starting from that section. And then alt 2 is starting later in the track and then going to the end. So I hope that makes sense. So yeah, there's several versions there of Land of Heroes. And then I even threw an alt 2 drums only loop. So later in this track. This track is called Quiet Solitude. So a nice variation there compared to all the other tracks. All right, so these tracks that are called short, that have short in the beginning of them, these are short loops that don't have a lot of melody or melodic material to them. And they're just simply, they could be used in backgrounds of menus within your game, as opposed to just the main titles or anything like that. So they don't need to get in the way. One example of how these could be used, at least the action ones, would be in a massive multiplayer game, online multiplayer game, when you're picking your class and choosing your weapons or whatever before you load out into the game. That could be one use for these. Here, I'll play the first one. And then it loops from there. Here's the second one. And so on. And there's a no drums version of the second one. And then there's no strings. And let me demonstrate the looping capabilities of these tracks. Here, I'll demonstrate using short action number 3. I'll put it in here, and I'll do the same thing as I did before. I'll just repeat it, and I'll play it just about halfway through for the purpose of demonstrating. So there we go. Here's action number 4. And there's a version without the choir. I think you get the idea of those. I also have peaceful short loops. Here's what peaceful number 1 sounds like. So yeah, here's peaceful number 3. It's not actually very peaceful, but it's also not action-y. It's the only one of these 5 where using the word peaceful might be inaccurate, but you get the idea. Peaceful number 5 features pretty much just harp, very simple. Again, just background music. And finally, last but not least, in the menus folder, this is Wonders and Mysteries. This one really is a slow piece that has a big climax and then goes back down, kind of like a tent. Here's what this sounds like. Then it kind of builds later in the track. And here's a big climax. And so on. So let's jump over to the cues section. There's your quest complete or level up cue. There's also an alternate version of that. Here's what that sounds like. And a second alternate version. Let me show you what these audio files look like. So here's just number 1. So you can kind of see the tail, and then there's some empty space here at the end. Let's look at some others. Here's number 3. Number 4. Number 10A. 10C, $11B, $13A, $14, and $15. Obviously, I skipped quite a few, but you can listen to all of them in the sampler video. So go ahead and check that out, and you'll hear them all. And in the background, playing in the background of that sampler is short action number 1 loop. So you can kind of hear it in context. All right, that about wraps it up. Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun working on it. I hope it enhances your project and whatever it is you're working on. Thank you so much for watching.